File system check. There are two types of commands that you could use to prepare your file system. The main one, which has been there and still there for years, is fsck. This command has been always used starting from Unix era and Solaris, moving on to Linux. And then there is another command that was introduced, xfs underscore repair. XFS file system or XFS underscore repair command is used for file system that are built on XFS file type. So Linux FSCK utility is used to check and repair Linux file system. And those Linux file systems specifically are ext2, ext3, ext4, and so on. So this utility, once again, is only used for file systems that are built on extension 2, 3, 4, or any other related file system. Linux XFS underscore repair utility is used to check and repair Linux file system for XFS file system type, as I mentioned earlier. So how do you check if a file system is XFS or extension 3 file system? You run df command, I believe with the option -t, which tells you the Linux file system type. Then depending on when was the last time a file system was checked, the system runs the fsck during boot time to check whether the file system is in consistent state. So every time your system boots up, by default it does the fsck check. And if there are any inconsistency, any corruption in the file system, it actually fixes that. And sometimes you probably see when system boots up, it takes a longer time to boot up because FSCK might find some of the disk errors, so it tries to fix it before it actually brings you into the operating system prompt mode. Then system administrator could also run it manually when there is a problem with the file system. So if you get an error messages in var log messages or in IO state or any of the command that you run, and then that you do find that file system or one of the file system on your system is corrupted, then you could run the fsck command manually. You don't have to wait for the system to reboot to run it. To make sure to execute the fsck command on an unmounted file system to avoid any data corruption issues. So that's what you have to make sure, that it is not mapped to any map drives. So remember when you do df-h command, and you will see on the left hand side you'll see all the mounts, and on the right hand side you'll see all the mount points. I'm sorry, on the left hand side you see the file systems, that is /dev/sda1 or sda2, and on the right hand side all the way to the right you'll see the mount points where it's mounted to. So before you run fsck or any of those file systems, make sure you unmount it. Hey, how about I need to run it on /root? Then how can I unmount it, right? That's a good question. Well, the answer is you can't. There's no way that you unmount it. The only way to do it is that you reboot it, or bring the system in single user mode, or bring the system in recovery mode and mount it on the disk, and then do fsck on your original file system, which is root. Which gets a little complicated as you actually bring the system in single user mode and how you do fsck. Now, continuing on, force file system check even if it's clean using option F. So if you want to do a file system check and it is already clean, but you still want to run it, then use -F option. Why do you want to even clean it when it's already clean? Well, some people do like to keep it consistent. If they are going through file system check of every file system, then they might do an entire file system, because if you have different partitions on your disk and you want to clean every partition, and perhaps maybe one of the partition is clean, so it will tell you, hey, this partition is clean, I'm not gonna do it. So instead of just going through back and forth and see which system or which partition is cleaned, then use just minus F option, which is clean everything. Okay, attempt to fix detected problems automatically using option Y. What Y means is if you are doing FSCK file system and then you use minus Y option with that, then it's not gonna bother you with questions like, hey, is it okay if I go ahead and clean it? Hey, I found this problem and these bad blocks. Is it okay if I proceed? So these are type of the things that you specify or predefine before running the script or before running the command. So it's just like as if you are doing yum install and it will ask you question, hey, I found this package, do you want me to install? And you say minus Y. But if you do not want to have enter Y all the time, then you could just specify minus Y with that. The XFS repair utility is highly scalable and is designed to repair even very large file system with many inode efficiencies. Unlike other Linux file system, XFS_repair does not run at boot time. Okay, so the difference primarily is between FSCK and XFS is XFS file system was introduced for larger partition like terabytes and petabytes. So that's why they came up with XFS. And the reason we don't run this utility at boot time because of course it does the check or cleanup of the file system which is very large and you don't want to wait for it to finish checking your file before you get into operating system. That's why it doesn't do it at boot time. If you do have issues, then you could run it manually, but bring the system into single user mode, or if it's not root partition, then you could simply run it by unmounting it and running it. The following are the possible exit codes for FSCK command, and those exit codes are 0 for no errors, meaning when you run the command and you get an output status or exit code 0, that means there are no errors. And to check the exit code, you could always run echo, dollar, and question mark right after running your command, and you will get the exit code. So 0, of course, no errors, always successful. Number 1 is file system errors corrected. Number 2, files system should be rebooted. 4, file system errors left uncorrected. 8, 16, 32, and so on. And of course, you could look it up more errors online if you like to get into more detail of how the exit codes are, what are each error code means. And I'm sure you don't want to get into too much detail because not all the time you'll get the error codes with that. So let's get into our Linux machine and let's try to see if we could run FSCK on few of the file system. I have my Linux machine open right here and I'm logged into through my PuTTY session. I am logged in as myself. I am in my home directory and the system I'm logged in is my system, which is my lab system, my first Linux VM. Perfect. Now type clear to clear the screen. Now, how do you check the file system? You do df -h. So what I was talking about, this is the file system on the left hand side. All this on the left column. If you wanted to view just left column, you could do awk print $1, right? And it will only give you the first column. Now, the second column size, what is the capacity used, what is available, the percentage, and the last column is mounted on. So if you want to correct any inconsistency on a file system, you do not run FSCK on the mounted file system. You do not run like, let's say, on Data or Oracle. You run on the actual file system. But before you run it, you need to pick which utility you have to use to do the file system check. And the utility depends on the file system type. How do you find the file system type? Is by running df -t command, uppercase T. And you will see the type right here tells you XFS, 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 XFS. Now, since we are running our latest version of Red Hat, um, most of the file system that are introduced in the latest version of Red Hat or CentOS are XFS. If you are working on an older version of Red Hat, then you're probably going to see ext2, 3, 4, and so on. And then you could use the command fsck on ext file system. But since now we are using XFS file system, we need to run the XFS underscore repair utility. But anyway, just to find out or verify it, let's run our fsck command on one of the file system. Let's say if you run it on this one, dev sdb1, hit enter, and you will see if you wish, first of all, fsck from utility Linux, this is the version. Then it says if you wish to check the consistency of XFS file system or repaired or damaged file system, see XFS underscore repair. Because when you ran it, it found out, hey, this file system is not ext file system, it's XFS file system. That's why it has given you the option or the suggestion to run this one. Okay, we'll run that one, XFS underscore repair. Now we'll specify the file system sdb1. Hit enter. Okay, now what does it say? It says XFS repair, I ran it on your file system, the one that you asked me to run, but it contains a mounted file system. Second message, contains a mounted and writable file system. Fatal error, could not initialize XFS library. Okay, and that's why, because this file system is mounted on /data. So for me to run XFS underscore repair utility on this file system, I have to unmount this file system from this mount point. And to do that, I have to do umount /data, simply that. Hit enter, and it says umount /data unmount failed, operation not permitted. Why? Because who am I? I am IFSol, and for this operation to be successful, I have to be a root. Okay, who am I? I'm root. Let's do df-t, and you'll see all the file system. Now let's do umount /data. Remember, you have to mount that file system again. So before you unmount it, you have to make sure copy this somewhere so you don't forget. So umount data, it has mounted it. Let's verify df-t, and you'll see there is no file system dev sdb1 and no /data. Perfect. Now we could do xfs underscore repair /dev sdb1. Right? This was the one. It was mounted on data. So let's run it. And it ran so fast, even though it's 2 gig of space. If you notice right here, this one /data is only 2 gig. And when you ran it, you see it says phase 1, find and verify superblock using internal log, 0 log, scan file system space, found root inode chunk, so on. Phase 3, phase 4, check for duplicate blocks. Phase 5, rebuild AG headers and trees. 6, check inode connectivity. 7, verify and correct link counts. And last is done. So it means it ran successfully. And how do you check the status? You do echo $, and it came up 0. It means the command that I ran preceding this command, that command was successful. And remember our exit code right here, it says 0 is no error. So our command ran perfectly. It actually fixed any issue if there were. So now the repair is done. Now we could mount the file system back on. And I'm sure you have written then down which file system we unmounted. To mount it back again, you have to use the command mount slash dev slash sdb1. This is the file system. And where are you trying to mount it? You're trying to mount it to slash data and hit enter. When you get your prompt back, it means it did mount. And now you do df minus h, hit enter, and you'll see the bottom one, dev slash sdb1, is mounted on slash data. So this is the lesson about these two utilities. Very important. Both of them are very important utilities, and they become very handy when your file system is corrupted. Then to fix it, you would, of course, you could either open up a case with your vendor, which is Red Hat or CentOS or whoever. But if it's CentOS, you're not going to get support. And if any other Linux file system, I would say you could be your own system administrator support guy who could fix it yourself. So you could run fsck or xfs underscore repair and fix your file system and bring the system back online within minutes. Try it out. Just be careful. This utility is very powerful. I don't want you to corrupt your file system. It's better if you could actually do a snapshot of your machine. But anyway, if you have not done it and it's too late and you're following me exactly as I'm running it and everything came out fine, perfect. If not, if you are having issue, it's okay. Feel free to send me an email and I'll try to help you out.